confidence is attractive and it helps us be more successful in progressing our goals in life. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 4 key elements to improve your confidence and therefore improve your success of reaching your goals. So I have experienced 2 polar opposites in terms of confidence, and starting off really unconfident and my confidence being built unexpectedly, and then starting off reasonably confident and then having that completely torn down. So in the first situation, this was when I started teaching yoga. I had imposter syndrome. I had no idea why anyone would want to listen to me, but I did it anyway because I loved it and have a passion for yoga and all the benefits that come from it. So I did start teaching, and my confidence built from receiving success feedback. So I would deliver the class, I would feel anxious the whole time for probably almost about 12 months, to be honest. I was anxious teaching yoga. Obviously in the beginning I was more anxious, and then over time the anxiety decreased due to that, I guess, desensitization from exposure. So as I went through this process, I received so much great feedback, and it came from not just the students saying, I love your classes, and coming to ask me questions, and then coming up at the end of the class to sign up for my mailing list. This is all success feedback, and then also being asked to teach more classes by the places that I was working at. This is even more success feedback. So what happens in this process is this, as time goes on, you're gathering data, and that data is affirming your actions and telling you that you are doing well and this is a good thing, and it's all this positive feedback. And as you receive that positive feedback over time, your confidence builds and builds and builds. And that's essentially, that is the most straightforward way to build your confidence, is going through that process of feeling a little bit anxious and then going through and then gathering that feedback. So that's an oversimplified scenario. So I'm going to talk about the other experience that I've had as well, where after going through all of that and being a well-liked yoga teacher for I think 10 years, something like that, I then changed careers and I studied for a few years and went into occupational therapy. So then I was like back at the bottom of the ladder, and you know, being older is always harder. You come from being someone who has become very good at what they do and who's got a life experience and knows their limits and their strengths and their weaknesses, and is comfortable in those. But then I went into this situation that was so far out of my comfort zone, and I came in with a reasonable level of confidence as a person. And after, I guess it was probably about the first 6-ish weeks, my confidence was just in the toilet. And what happened in that situation is it's very much a workplace cultural thing, but I was receiving very little positive feedback. I was working harder than I've ever worked in my life. So it was one of those very rare situations where I've tried really hard at something and felt failure feedback, like I wasn't succeeding. Whether I was succeeding or not it is debatable. I wasn't doing badly. However, I wasn't getting any success feedback, or if I was, they were only tiny amounts. It was real breadcrumbs. And there also wasn't a lot of failure feedback. However, there was some. And so when things needed to be fed back that this isn't the right way to do it, we do it this way, which that's fine, that's all part of the learning process. There was very little recognition or acknowledgement of all that time in between where I was probably doing a very good job, however, not receiving any feedback whatsoever and working really hard in that time. So that is a way of diminishing confidence as well. So I've been through both of those processes and I have that comparison. So I want to go through a number of things that can help prevent that from happening. For if you've got a bit of confidence, prevent it from just completely diminishing. And then also being able to go through that process in my first example of like slowly building that over time. The number one, the first key element is fake it, own it, call it. So what I mean by this is fake it till you become it. So this is how the first scenario, becoming a yoga teacher and having imposter syndrome, I faked it until I became it. Absolutely. Every single day I felt like an imposter for about 12 months. And every single time I went in to teach, I faked it. I acted like I was this excellent, experienced teacher who knew so much and was able to help anyone with this sort of enthusiasm and passion and saying yes and just being open to whatever came that day. And it was this process of just faking it until I became it. The next part, owning it, is owning your strengths and weaknesses. So this could even be an activity worth sitting down and writing down, what am I good at? And then where am I weak and where can I improve? We all have strengths and weaknesses. Nobody's perfect. Some of us have that perfectionist drive and we want to be perfect, and that's that high level of conscientiousness, and that can add a bit of a challenge to things. However, we can help ourselves by really owning and knowing what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and the things that you know you are good at, really lean into that, really know that about yourself and take that in. So when you're faking your confidence, it becomes less fake because you know deep down you can think, hang on, no, I am really good at this and I'm great at that and I'm still improving. So the things that are your weaknesses, I'm still improving on these things. So these are things that I'm still learning, and that's okay. And I accept that. You really have to allow yourself and be okay with yourself being at the stage that you are at. It's totally reasonable to be where you're at right now because you don't know what you don't know and you can't have experience that you haven't gone through yet. So that's okay. Calling it out, the third part of this, is it's part of owning it. Call it out. Let people know, hey, I'm still working on this and this is where my strengths lie. You don't say it in that formal way, but be open to calling out what you know about yourself and sort of making light of it and making jokes about it. It makes you more relatable, and it makes the whole situation of feeling unconfident and feeling like, I'm not sure, it makes it better. Obviously, within reason, and there's ways to say things in certain situations, so we don't also want to be sitting there going, oh, I'm so terrible at this, I'm so bad at that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying own it and call it out when it's appropriate and really start getting comfortable with that. The second key element is to start getting comfortable with where you're at, get comfortable with the discomfort of being where you're at in whatever this goal or achievement is that you are trying to go through. As I just said before, go through the process and allow yourself to go through that process and be at the stage that you are at. So something that really helped me with this, with getting comfortable with the discomfort, is yoga. So these types of practices, any yoga practice, breath practice, any Eastern philosophical practice that aligns with mindfulness, like a lot of therapists are bringing mindfulness into their therapeutic practice these days because it has merit, there's evidence to support it. Bring something like this into your daily or weekly routine to start to help your mindset so that you can really start to be comfortable with the discomfort of being a learner or being new to something, and slowly building that confidence and going through that process to gather that success feedback, which will just do it for you. You don't really have to make You don't have to affirm anything to yourself. You don't have to say to yourself, hey, and talk yourself into it. Hey, you did well at this, so now you can feel good about that. It's not really something that you can control. It's something that will just happen within you over time. Your self-esteem and your self-confidence will grow as you get that success feedback, and as you practice something, get better at it, get more and more feedback. It's just a mechanism within us, and trust it. Number 3, support your nervous system to go through this process. So this is something I talk about in most of my videos. Diet, nourishing diet, and some sort of physical activity, especially if it has one of those breathwork practices I talked about in the last element. So all of these things affect your biochemistry. It's not a small factor, it is a big factor. The biochemistry and the little biochemical factory that operates within you, your hormones, your nervous system, your brain, it is grossly affected by what you eat and the amount of activity that you do. We were designed to be nourished in a particular way, and we were designed to move. And all of the things that we can do were inbuilt into us because it wants to be treated in that way. And what I mean is the body wants to move, and the body wants nourishing food, and it wants hydration. So we need to support the nervous system with both exercise, diet, and breath practices or some sort of physical activity so that it can perform at its best, and so that the mechanisms that I've spoken about before can actually work properly. When we don't do those things, we are subjecting ourselves to huge distortions, and that's where those things cannot work, and the method that I'm talking about may be disrupted if we have distorted thinking. And that distorted thinking comes when we are not taking care of ourselves and we're not looking after the biochemistry within us, and we may be exposing ourselves to toxicity, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, and creating these big distortions. And that's when this process doesn't work. If you're in that kind of situation, I highly recommend getting some therapy, or if you don't have access to that right now, you starting with some sort of breath work, mindfulness, meditation practice that will help get you started. Number 4, trust the process. So really just allow yourself to go through the process, persevere, know that there will be downfalls. Rarely any process is linear. Most processes are not. We're always going a bit up and down in life, and as we're progressing in life, there's always ups and downs. Sometimes we feel like we're going backwards and we've reverted, and then you'll find you'll start going forwards again. And this is like considering it to be a marathon rather than a sprint, starting to slow it down, starting to allow yourself to just be where you're at, go through the process, and trust the process. I hope this helps, and if you like the video, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I really hope to see you next time.